Book 21, Story 8. The Flower Petal. Line 1. The arrow is pointing. The arrow is pointing to the petals of the flower. To the petals of the flower. The arrow is pointing to the petals of the flower. How are we directed? How are we directed to the flower petals? To the flower petals. How are we directed to the flower petals? Well, the arrow is pointing to the petals of the flower. Line 2. Flower petals are delicate, soft, leaf-like parts of a flower. Leaf-like parts of a flower. Flower petals are delicate, soft, leaf-like parts of a flower. Question. Describe the texture of flower petals. Describe the texture of flower petals. Well, flower petals are delicate, soft, leaf-like parts of a flower. Okay, good. Let's see what line 3. When flowers are cut, the petals will only last a few days. When flowers are cut, the petals will only last a few days. Question. What will only last a few days? What will only last a few days? What will only last a few days? Well, when flowers are cut, the petals will only last a few days. Line 4. Only last a few days means after a few days, the petals will fall off the flower. Only last a few days means after a few days, the petals will fall off the flower. Question. What does only last a few days mean? What does only last a few days mean? Only last a few days mean. Only last a few days means after a few days, the petals will fall off the flower. Line 5. Petals will wilt or become dry, shriveled, and die. Petals will become dry, shriveled, and die. What will happen to flower petals? What will happen to flower petals after a few days? Well, petals will wither or become dry, shriveled, and die. Line 6. To get the picture of shriveled, first think of a plum. Round and juicy. Now think of a prune. Dry, wrinkled, and shriveled. wrinkled, and shriveled. To get the picture of shriveled, first think of a plum, round and juicy. Now think of a prune, round, or rather dried, wrinkled, and shriveled. Question: what is helpful? What is helpful to get the picture of shriveled? To get the picture of shriveled. Well, to get the picture of shriveled, first think of a plum, round and juicy. Now think of a prune, dry, wrinkled, and shriveled. Line 7. A prune or raisin is the picture of shriveled. Is the picture of shriveled. A prune or raisin is the picture of shriveled. Question: when you compare things, what gives a good picture of shriveled? What gives a good picture of shriveled? When you compare things, what gives a good picture of shriveled? A prune or a raisin is the picture of shriveled. Reading out loud goal. Here we go. The arrow is pointing to the petals of the flower. Flower petals are delicate, soft, leaf-like parts of a flower. When flowers are cut, the petals will only last a few days. Only last a few days means after a few days, the petals will fall off the flower. Petals will wither or become dry, shriveled, and die. To get the picture of shriveled, first think of a plum, round and juicy. Now think of a prune, dried, wrinkled, and shriveled. A prune or raisin is the picture of shriveled.